Welcome to Reflecting Light. This podcast is about filling the world with light by exploring myth, ancient texts, scripture, great works of world literature, and the works of artists, past and present, for those who have eyes to see and ears to hear. And now, here is your host, Mandy Green.
Hello and welcome to Reflecting Light, you beautiful souls, and you are beautiful. I'm so happy to be with you today. May has just been an amazing month, and I just want to say thank you for being part of Reflecting Light with me. I will be finally mailing out all of the prizes from the Reflecting Light drawing. If you want some Reflecting Light swag, just send me an email at Mandy Green. Brooks with an E, like Anne with an E, at gmail.com. I'd love to send you some cute stickers or something. For today, I'd wanted to talk about the Hymn of the Pearl. I wanted Lori Driggs on here and Melissa Boggs, or Tshikamba, as she's known in the art world, to tell some of their story about how we got together and how this project came to pass and what inspired Lori. And we will still have them do that. It's just really hard to get everyone together. And I realized as I was advertising the book signing and the lecture and the sound bath, which will be July 8th at Purify Wellness in Pleasant Grove. If you're in town, we would love to have you join us. It's the first live event I'll be doing since COVID. And I'll be talking about the importance of the Hymn of the Pearl. And the sign up for that is in the show notes, or if you just go to my webpage, mandybgreen.com, right at the top, it will have a book of the Hymn of the Pearl, a picture of the book, and you can order the book there, or you can buy it at the lecture and book signing, and we will all be there to sign your book for you. And then we will have a lecture about it, and then a sound bath. The sound bath, since your body is composed of so much water, sound is actually able to travel through that water. And so Holly is a very skilled person. She uses Tibetan bowls and gongs and Indian drums, all kinds of things to reset us physically and spiritually. So that should be really fun. And as I was thinking about this, I was actually listening to a podcast by Jody Moore, who's so good at helping people understand their potential. And she was talking about your offer and if people really know what your offer is. And I thought, no, they don't at all. So what I'm going to do is give you some background about what exactly is the Hymn of the Pearl. I just reference it offhand, but I realize many of you don't even know what the Hymn of the Pearl is or where we get it from. So I'm going to explain what it is. I'll read to you the text, and then I'm going to read to you the essay that I wrote at the back, which talks about how important this is to understanding who you are and why you're here on the earth. So today's podcast should just be a leisurely, beautiful little stroll for you to just sit back and listen to and enjoy. Perhaps this is one you could listen to over and over if you need to be reminded of these eternal truths. I'm going to read to you from the Joseph Smith Papyri, written by Hugh Nibley, Appendix 3, called The Pearl, in which Nibley has the full text of the Hymn of the Pearl, which I so recommend going and reading. I'll put a link to that in the show notes as well. It begins with a description of the text. He says, the recent increase in available Mandaean and Manchean texts has put the beautiful and fanciful imagery of the early Christian hymn known as the Pearl into a clearly marked category of ritual literature, its plot and setting being very close to those of books of breathings. Every student of this poem has been quick to point out the striking parallels found in a wide range of Oriental and classical sources, and it should not be hard to establish ties between it and the breathings literature, especially through Coptic sources. The text of the Pearl is in Syriac and is found in the Acts of Thomas Judas the Apostle. It is dated by Walter Crum to the 1st century AD. Now that's huge. Any text that can go to the 1st century AD shows you there's something to it. Okay, it's not that far off from the time of Christ and has less time to be altered. And by Alfred Adam to be between AD 50 and 70, making it contemporary with the Joseph Smith Book of Breathings. It was first translated into English by W. Wright in 1871. The situation is that Thomas, Judas, the apostle, is imprisoned by order of the Indian king Mazdai and his wicked minister Karish, who accuse him of sorcery. While he was praying, all those who were in the prison saw that he was praying and begged him to pray for them too. And when he had prayed and sat down, Judas began to chant this hymn. Thus, the pearl has the same theme as the earlier Psalm of Thomas and as the Book of Breathings. Namely, and this is the theme of the pearl, the yearning of the living and the dead for deliverance from the dark prison of this world and of the underworld, respectively. Since the hero brings such deliverance, we have a dissentious situation as in the Egyptian Amduat and Breathings literature, showing the way of escape to them that sit in darkness. So now I present to you the Hymn of the Pearl, a simplified retelling by Lori Driggs, illustrated by Tshikamba, essay by Mandy Green. When I was a little child, I lived in the kingdom of my mother and father. I delighted in the glory and splendor of my beautiful surroundings and those who raised me. My parents made a covenant with me and wrote it in my heart that I should never forget it. If you go down into Egypt and bring the one pearl which is in the midst of the sea, encircled about by the loud breathing serpent, then you will put on again your robe of glory and your purple cloak over it, and with your brother, our next in glory, you shall be an heir to our kingdom. They fill the pack full for me from their great treasures, gold, silver, rubies, and diamonds that can crush iron. It was large, yet so light that I could carry it alone. My mother removed my purple cloak, which was woven to fit me perfectly. My father took off my robe of glory, which they had made for me with love. From our home, they sent me forth, providing me with all that I needed. I left the east and began my journey attended by 2 guardians. The way was dangerous and difficult, and I was very young to go alone. I traveled to the borders of the eastern lands on my way into Egypt, and there my companions parted from me. I went straight to the serpent and settled near his home in the sea. I planned to wait until he slumbered. Then I would take the pearl from him. I was all alone, a stranger to the other travelers, when a fellow kinsman from the Dawnland joined me. He was a noble friend. He warned me against the trickery of the land, but I had no fear. Lest they think I was a stranger coming for the pearl, I dressed in their clothes, but in some way or another they learned I was not from their country. They did indeed fool me with kindness and gave me rich food to eat. I forgot I was a child of a king and queen, and I began to serve their king. I forgot the pearl for which my parents had sent me. Through my ease and comfort, I sank into a deep and forgetful sleep. My parents watched from our home, concerned and sorrowful. They published a proclamation that all should come to our gate. Kings and queens, princes and princesses, and all the nobles of the East came. They made a plan on my behalf that I might not be lost in Egypt. They wrote me a letter and signed their names to it. Then there's a picture of a glorious phoenix delivering their message to their daughter. From your father, the King of Kings, your mother, the Queen of the Dawnland, and your brother, our next in glory, To our child who is in Egypt, greetings. Arise from your sleep and listen to the words of our letter. Remember that you are a child of a king and queen. So be aware of whom you serve. Be mindful of the pearl we sent you to Egypt to seek. Remember your robe of glory and your beautiful purple cloak. One day you shall put them on again when your name is spoken in the midst of the valiant. When you, with your brother, our beloved, shall be an heir to our kingdom. The letter awoke me from my deep sleep. I took it and kissed it. I remembered that I was a child of royal parents. My soul longed for its true home. I remembered the pearl for which I was sent into Egypt. I began to charm the terrible, loud-breathing serpent. I hushed him to sleep and lulled him into slumber. My father's name I named over him, and of my mother, the Queen of the East, and the names of our brother, the next in glory. I snatched away the pearl and turned to go back to my parents' house. The strange and dirty clothes I was wearing I took off and left in their country. I made my way straight to the light of our home, the East. I found my letter on the road before me. As its voice had awakened me, so with its light it now led me. With its love and guidance, it encouraged me to go quickly. My parents sent me my robe of glory, which I had taken off, and my cloak, which went over it. I had forgotten its beauty and splendor, having left it as a child in my parents' house. It was adorned with glorious colors, with gold, rubies, sapphires, and agates. Love urged me to run to meet it and receive it. Immediately when I embraced it, the robe became a mirror of myself. Images of the king and queen were woven all over it. I was covered completely in my cloak. Clothed in my royal robes, I approached the gate of salutation and adoration. I bowed my head in great respect to the majesty of them who sent me. I had fulfilled my covenant as they had fulfilled theirs. At the gate of their princes and princesses, I mingled with their nobles. My brother rejoiced in me and received me with gladness. I was with him in his kingdom, where all of his servants with sweet-sounding voices sing praises. As he had promised, we left speedily to the royal court, taking with me my pearl, where I was reunited with my mother and father, the queen and the king. Thank you, Lori, for that beautiful text. And now let me read you my essay about why this text matters and why all of us should know and hear this story. Couched as a children's story in this retelling, The Hymn of the Pearl is a spiritually significant tale that spans centuries and answers some of life's most pressing questions. Where did I come from? Why am I here? And what is my pearl or purpose here? Written for an early Christian congregation in the 1st century AD, the hymn echoes the same theme and motifs found in most classic cultural tales, namely the hero's journey. This journey typically involves a hero embarking on an adventure, learning from experience, overcoming a foe or challenge, winning a victory, and returning home transformed. The hymn uses a compositional style known as chiasm. The chiastic structure is a literary device used to emphasize the most critical moment of the story and represents the turning point outlined in the model below. So here you have a chiastic structure that begins with point A, goes to point F, and then point F is reinforced and it goes back from F to A. So that's what a chiasm is, just as a side note. A, the child is recognized as the offspring of divine parents. B, the garment of glory is taken off. C, a covenant is made. D, the hero journeys from a heavenly home to Egypt. E, the serpent who guards the pearl is sought out. F, memory is lost. The hero falls into the sleep of forgetfulness. F1, memory is restored. The hero awakens to her purpose. E1, the serpent is overcome and the pearl is recovered. D1, ascent back to the heavenly heights. C1, the covenant is kept. B1, the robe or garment of glory is restored. And A1, a divine inheritance is obtained. At the midpoint of the tale, our protagonist has lost memory of her glorious past, taken up the identity of the world, and fallen into the deep sleep of forgetfulness. It is precisely when our hero is at her lowest point that the heavens mobilize on her behalf to remind her of her heavenly identity, the covenant written on her heart, and her mission to retrieve the pearl. The catalyst that changes the outcome of her journey is the recollection of memory written in the heart. Remembrance of her divine parentage and purpose of her earthly descent is the key to obtaining the one true pearl. This memory unlocks the unique power within her to overcome the serpent and to retrieve her own precious pearl. Perhaps much like our hero, you have also wondered why you are here and what is the purpose of your life. It is to you, the reader, that the hymn of the pearl speaks. Its simple yet eloquent message reminds you that you too are a child of heavenly parents. As such, you have inherited divine qualities, gifts, talents, and capacities directly from them to supply your need during your sojourn here on earth. You also made a covenant centered around your own precious pearl. Deep within you is the power to confront and overcome the loud breathing serpent, whose breath and noise, ironically, is designed to keep souls here asleep and deaf to their true identity and purpose. And just like in this universal tale, the key to unlocking this power and ability is a remembrance of your true identity and mission here on earth. If, like our hero, you have felt lost, confused, and half asleep as a result of being here, take heart. The ancients also felt as you do now. They understood the cataclysmic consequences of not regaining spiritual memory and sought truths that would lead them home. The Battaglia gold tablet, recently discovered in a grave in southern Italy, speaks of this same need. Quote, "You shall find to the left of the house of Hades a wellspring, and by the side thereof standing a white cypress. To this wellspring approach not near, but thou shalt find another by the lake of memory, cold water flowing forth, and there are guardians before it. Say, I am a child of earth and of starry heaven, but my race is of heaven alone. This ye know yourselves. And lo, I am parched with thirst and I perish. Give me quickly the cold water flowing forth from the lake of memory. And of themselves they will give thee to drink from the holy wellspring." Close quote. If the world felt dark and chaotic enough to demand remembrance then, certainly our own times and situations merit such a call. As you take time to contemplate the deeper meaning and symbols in this text, illumination and insight will come to you about your own divine nature and your purpose here on earth. Ask yourself, have the noises and distractions of this world lulled me into slumber and drowned out remembrance of who I am? Is there a covenant written on my heart? What is the pearl I was sent to retrieve? The great serpent would have you slumber and remain unaware of your divine identity and mission. The noise of this world is designed to do just that. But the gods call to you. You are their own, and their message is written on your heart, waiting for you to remember. Our invitation is to take these words to heart. Ask, seek, knock, and find. Pray for remembrance of your glorious past, the gifts you possess, and the memory of why you came down to earth. Perhaps for each of us, nothing can be of greater urgency, worth, or import. The kingdom of the heavens is like a merchant seeking beautiful pearls, who, when he found one very precious pearl, went and sold all he had and bought it. Matthew 13:45-46. Well, my friends, that is the hymn of the pearl. That is the work we've spent years trying to create and develop for you. And that is the power of this tale, to help you remember why you left your heavenly home, and to help you tap into that covenant written on your heart that is just for you. Your purpose and your mission are unique to you. They won't be like anybody else's. But the only way you can know what that is by remembering, and by praying and seeking and asking and knocking. That is how you find your pearl. And that is how you find the power to overcome the loud-breathing serpent, to overcome all the things that are inherent in this crazy world we live in. And that is also how you find joy and purpose in your being here. May you each seek after that remembrance and come to know the pearl you were sent for, is my sincere, sincere prayer. Wishing you all love and light on that epically important, beautiful spiritual journey. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for Reflecting Light with Mandy Green. If you enjoy this podcast, please leave a good rating and share it with your friends. And remember, your light makes the world a brighter place. Share it.